Okay, hello, welcome back. Lesson 4, working with racks, Ableton Live. So we've got our rack built, we've got our 3 sounds, we've added some effects, and there we go, we've got some noise going. So let's take a look now at assigning macros. So I'm going to open this guy up, and here is our macro panel. So we've got a couple options here when we look at assigning macros. We can actually, select a knob that or a parameter that we want to assign simply by right-clicking on it and assigning it to map to macro 1 or whatever out of the 8 choices we have there. Or scroll back over here, we can actually go to the map mode, which is right here, and then we can select. You see how everything's kind of highlighted in a green haze? Those are the parameters that are available for us to map. So let's go to the analog saw and go ahead and grab the filter frequency, and we'll select 1, and we've got that mapped. And let's go to the analog square and do the same for that. So we've got frequency and map. So not only can we map individual, and then we want to hit the map button to unassign, to let go of that. Actually, let me go back here. So not only can we map things, but we can map multiple things to one macro. So the reason I assigned both filters for analog square and analog saw to 1 is now we have the parameters up here. So with the filter knob on the macro turned all the way to the left, essentially down to 0, I can go up here and adjust my parameters. So let me hit play and kind of play with where I feel like it's a good setting for it. Okay, that kind of sounds good for there. So I'll hit stop and let that go. So now I'll turn this guy all the way to the right to 127, go back to map, and then we'll work with the maximum values from there. Okay, so we've got our minimum and maximum values set. So now what you can do is I can right click, say, on the bottom one if I want, or the top one, either one, and I can select Invert Range. So now what that's going to do is this one knob is going to control both filters, but in opposite directions. So let me take it out of map mode and show you what that sounds like. And let me change some of those. Just don't feel like we're getting enough range out of that. All right, let's take a listen to it now. There we go. So it can be a little bit of a trial and error when you're actually going in here and working with the different parameters. You just want to kind of mess with it. But I like to make sure the important thing is what position you have the macro knob in when you're doing that, because that has a lot of bearing on the overall sound that you're going to get. So also while we're in here, you can see that if you're building a rack or a bunch of layers and assigning a bunch of different parameters and things, simply by selecting on our path name and minimum, maximum, things like that. You can actually categorize or reorganize things here. So let's go ahead and continue to assign more macros, and we'll kind of look at that as we move forward. So I'll take this. Let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's go with decay and release. So let me go to analog, and we'll assign we'll pick the release button, and we'll map that to macro 2. And let's go to analog, and we'll pick the decay, and we'll map that to macro 2 as well. So now let's work with our, again, minimum and maximum values here to get the desired sound that we want. So I've got the macro in the position all the way to the left. Now I'm gonna take the macro knob and push it all the way to the right, hit map, and then we'll work with our maximums. And we'll unmap, and now we have control. And then we can right click and rename. So let's call this guy, I don't know, what was it? Release and decay. So decay / release. That way we know what's going on. So we've got the filter frequency and decay and release to work with. So one of the important things when you're thinking about assigning macros or working with the macros is, let's say you have a external MIDI controller. I've got an example here of the APC 40 Mark II. So if we're assigning macros to do multiple things for us within the rack, ultimately these are MIDI mappable to your controller. Let's say like these 8 controls here, or any of these knobs up here, even probably to the sliders, just anywhere you want for any MIDI controller. The macros are going to be mappable in that sense. So if you're performing live, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility and range in what you're able to achieve. So let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson and see what else we can continue to figure out. Actually, before I do that, got a little bit ahead of myself. I apologize. Let's go ahead and save this. So I'm going to click right here on the save button, and we'll go ahead and assign it a name. Let's say working with racks tutorial. That way I'll know what it is. But now I've got that saved to recall anytime I want in my user library, working with racks tutorial. So anyhow, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson and see what else we can get accomplished.